My friends over here on Periscope, Robin Black. You're on Robin Black YouTube channel or wherever you're watching this. I'm in Stratford, Ontario. We're going to shoot here 1 or 2 days a week, building a little studio shot. Right now, we're just hanging out in front of the fireplace. But this will be this. How about this? Is that better? You guys, how's that better? A little quiet? A little better. Periscope, they tend to have some great questions. Also follow me on Instagram at Robin Black MMA. Joanna versus Rose, number 2. This is the first look at that, okay? There's a lot to look at in this fight, a lot. And I think we'll look at it 2 or 3 times before April 7th. There's a ton. There's technical aspects for sure. But the way that fight went down, and when it comes to Rose, this is part of it. She knows this. I've had the great pleasure of speaking to her a number of times, but a number of different topics. I am a very big fan of hers, and Joanna. Also did a great, really fun breakdown with her, looking at her footage. These are the 2 best 115-pound females in the world. There's no question about it. They are. And Rose has admitted, and or at least discussed this as a possibility for herself, that when she is on at her best and free and out of her own way, she's fucking unbelievably good. And when she is not at her best. And that sounds true of anyone. You know, I've heard, somebody today said, which Verdum's going to show up? Fair enough. It is true of all of us. But at this level, the best, the very best, should be able to be in that 90th percentile all the time. And once they get into that fight, they should be able to access that freedom to be able to go out and express themselves freely. And when Rose does that, it is beautiful to watch her skills. And Joanna has done that at all times, with the exception, apparently seeming so, of this last time. What other facts are there? So again, this is just number 1 look at it. This is we're just going to see what layers we are going to be exploring into this. But what is true about this fight? Let's look at what we know to be true. True. Not maybe or probably or we think it's true. What's true? Joanna, what is not true is Joanna wins fights 100% of the time in mixed martial arts. That was true. 100% of her UFC fights she won. She was undefeated in MMA, Joanna Jedrzejczyk. That was true. Somebody said the painting behind looks like Rose. That is called the Jade. That's called a Jade Lady. It is a famous. It's not an example. There are many of them, and they are a famous art type. This one is. We got up to $25. So don't break into my house. But the Joanna Jedrzejczyk won her fights 100% of the time. That is no longer true. Now, she's fought in kickboxing or whatever, but when she fought mixed martial arts in the UFC, she won. Not only that, she was the alpha female. There have been moments of pushback. Karolina Kowalkiewicz pushed back, and she was equal to it. She was up to it. Even at times where she was met with another alpha, she stayed fully alpha. She could handle it all. She could take it all. Didn't matter. I don't have a preconceived, I don't have a like or a dislike. I don't have a want for any of this to be true. I don't have a dog in the race of this idea that I'm about to present, but it looked like she tapped out. Now, I don't know where she's at with that, but it looked like she tapped due to strikes. Mark, does that what it looked like to you? Is that what it looked like to you guys? You want to tap due to strikes? So we see a lot of hearts there. I don't know if that's people going, I feel for her. Those are my hearts. Or they're agreeing. Looked to me like she tapped due to strikes. I do not have a like that doesn't have an emotional connection to me. I don't want it to be true or untrue. Someone said true. So what I said was it looked like that was the case. And someone said true. And yes. That doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't even mean it's true for her. And it doesn't mean that that part of her brain that consciously decides things chose to do it either. but it did look like that. If that's the case, that is not the move of the alpha female. That is the beta or the passive or the accepting of defeat issue. Now, how do we separate that? There are two systems at play in your brain when you do anything complicated. And this is going to be another episode of Water in the future. We're going to touch on it today. Mark, what's 2 plus 2? And what is 212 plus 117.5? How would you go about figuring that out? Calculator, paper, yeah. Any of these processes that, and I ask you the same thing. What's 2 plus 2 for? You know that. That is a different part of the brain than the part for the second thing that I asked you. That thing is going to require particularly focused attention. That is going to require you to burn sugars, glucose. There's a cost involved in that, an attention cost. And while you're doing that, if a naked person walks by, you might not notice. You can become blind while engaging that part of the mind. Whereas this part, 2 plus 2, 4. Now, if that part tapped, you didn't actually, and this is true. This is how we think. This is how we work. This is how humans work. But it's also, again, I don't have a preference for one thing or the other. I just find this shit curious. If something happens and I tap, that can happen. What did I learn from that? Holy shit, I may not always be in control of every action of mine while I fight. So all of these things are new to Joanna. All of this. Maybe I'm not always the alpha. Maybe I surrendered. Maybe I'm not even in control of it. I never would have surrendered. How did that happen? And trust me, that happens in fighting. A big part of fighting is overriding that part of your brain. When you get fucking punched the first time in your very first fight, and if this has ever happened to you on the street, you'd like to square up and do what Chuck Liddell does, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing that. There's nothing to be ashamed of. That reaction is natural. Those instincts are part of the reason that our species still exists, to protect yourself. So some of those instincts are still in there. Oh my God. I've been there. Before you even understand you've tapped out. Why couldn't I override that? All of that is true. All that shit's new to her. That wasn't true. When was New York? What, October? I was there. It was fucking awesome. That was one of the greatest fight nights I've ever experienced. From an emotional, from a spectacle, from technical. November. It was something special. So in October, none of this was true. Now it is true. Joanna has to deal with that shit head on. So failure is tough, but it's important. Failure is part of how we get better. You know what practice is? You know what Frankie Edgar does every day from the time he's 3 years old? He practices wrestling. You know what practicing means? It means sucking. Trying to be slightly less shitty every day. So failure is important. But what she went through, and now failure in anything is painful. Failure in an individual sport is more painful. Failure in combat sports is more painful. And on and on. And now she has to face the woman that she did. And the question is, did she deal with these things head on? Has she laid them all on the table and addressed them truthfully? Because if you don't, they can happen again. So there's a lot going on with that. Rose landed big shots on her and took her out. What if one of those missed? Like, what if one missed? Or what if one landed not as clean? Or what if she chose in those moments to, instead of go forward and land, she chose to be patient or circle or shoot or make a different choice? The whole fight's different. That's true of every fight. It's true of every fight, especially those ones that are over in a minute or two like that. One different choice, and it's 3 rounds. And if it's 3 rounds, it's different. How these two are going to approach this fight is going to be fascinating. And they never really fought. They didn't fight in the way that they could fight this time. What's going to happen when one of them is tired and the other one isn't? What's going to happen when one of them doesn't get her way and the other one does? What's going to is Is Joanna going to be overly aggressive or overly patient? Is she going to be spooked? Did she? Because I'll tell you another thought. And I'm going to wrap this up because these are just, I'm asking questions. And I'm not looking for answers. I'm looking for more questions. Looking for more variables. I'm looking for more reasons to go, holy shit. This is what happens to me when I'm looking at fights. There are so few answers. It's more and more and more questions. But there are some things that we do know from experience. And when Joanna's talking about the weight cut almost killing her, and the night before, you don't.
Video for cutting the weight is scary.
Yeah, she did look rough. She did, but some of that's fear too. There are people who have done those and just walked through there. Some of it physiologically that day they're just a little better, and some are just that much more prepared. And we don't know that these things are connected. But once you start doing that much more press and that much more, I'm the champion, I'm going to be undefeated, like Ronda, you change the context of the meaning of the fight and your title and your preparation and who you are and what you have to defend and what you have to protect. It all changes. And then young Rose, all she needs to do, life is kind of simple for her. When you chat with her, there's somebody at my door, but we'll deal with that in a second. When you chat with her, you really see that she can simplify it. She just goes ahead and simplifies it. And all she needs to do is go out and be free on that night. Fucking hug her dog and let it all go. Consequences, the outcomes, the fears, the anxieties, the meaning, none of it. Just go out there and dream about fighting and express it. So we're going to get deeper into this stuff. We're going to go a lot deeper. We're going to look at some of the different aspects and the technical things and the last fight in detail. But I just wanted to touch on it because it's such a great fight. It was really special to be in that arena on that night. I'm such a fan of Mike. And George going in there and beating somebody as great as Michael was really wild. And seeing TJ and Cody do that thing and feeling their emotion, they're going to do it again. And then these two, fuck. This one's going to be great, April 7th. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends.